This week's episode of The Grid is sponsored by MPix. Shoot today, upload tonight, we ship tomorrow. All One Software, focused on photography. Peach Pit Press, publishers of technology books, ebooks, and videos for creative people. Epson, exceed your vision. Expo Imaging, Rogue Flash Benders for speedlight enthusiasts. Intel, the power you need for hardcore creatives. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional photography website. And B&H Photo, the professional source.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to The Grid Live, our weekly talk show here at Kelby Media Group. My name is Matt Kliskowski, and I'm joined today by none other than a man who has many, many names. We call him Dan. We call him Dano. We call him Dan Steinhardt. That's about all we call you, isn't it?
Well, Dano's the work name.
Dano's the work name.
When I hear Dan, that means I'm in trouble at home.
Dan?
You got it.
All right, and then Dan Steinhardt is just your full name then.
Correct.
Good stuff, Dan.
Okay. Now you know.
So Dano he's from, you work for Epson.
Yes.
And you're gonna kind of get a little feel for some of the things that he's here for today. But we have Dano number one to talk about a contest that you guys are doing. It's a different contest too. So I think it's gonna be pretty cool when people kind of hear the gist of the whole thing.
Okay.
And it's like a contest day. Because we're actually judging. We're judging live on the show a contest, so a contest for ViewBug too. So we're finishing up a contest, and then we're kicking off a brand new contest. So that's good. A couple things just to get away before we start the show. Photoshop's World is coming up. We have a lot of giveaways and things like that. What are our giveaways, Dan?
Visual Stories Behind the Lens with Vincent LaFerre.
There we go. There, glare. So that's one of our giveaways. We also have 2 tickets to any of our upcoming Kelby training seminars. So RC's got a couple of dates with his Photoshop for Photographer seminar. We got Joe McNally out there. We got Ben Wilmar out there. Scott's going to be coming up. So we got 2 tickets to those. And then you're going to give away, what, 3?
3 separate signature-worthy sample packs.
So it's a package of paper.
A sampling of our different signature-worthy papers from Epson.
What kind of papers are in there?
Oh, you had to ask me that one.
Never mind. I know.
There's going to be premium luster will be in there, hot press bright, cold press bright, hot press natural, cold press natural.
Exhibition fiber?
Exhibition fiber paper.
I like exhibition fiber.
I think I'm forgetting something, but
that's okay.
We didn't practice that one.
Exhibition fiber is my favorite, so that's. I do like the premium luster though.
Premium luster has been out there for a long time.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, well, it's been out there a long time. It's a great paper. It's also very easy to work with.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of my favorite papers when, I print all the images in the booth at Epson and various trade shows. If it's going to go behind glass, luster is really a great paper to work with.
See, this is the kind of stuff. That's why so Dano was just going to come on the show and do the contest part. And I'm like, dude, you got to stay on the show because he's got a wealth of information of being in this industry for so many years. And so I think just stuff like that is
I even have a story about Vincent LaFerre, very recent. We were coming back from Photo Plus East, going to hotels, and everyone's crammed on buses. And there was Vincent, an amazing guy who does a lot of work from still and now in video with DSLRs, and he had all this gear, and he put all the gear on his lap so I could have a seat.
Really?
And I think it was a guilt thing, so that he could hit me up for something later, but he's a terrific guy.
Yeah, he's a very good, cool guy. Seen him at Photoshop World, too. So, all right. So we do have a couple things coming up in the show. And like I said, we got Dan. We're going to kick off a contest. We're going to judge a contest live. We'll have all the images here. And then we're just going to get into printing because we have the guy from Epson here. And there's a lot of different printing questions that I had just about the state of printing, tips for printing, a little bit about where we think printing is going and what the future is. And then I encourage you guys, anybody watching the show, make sure you send in your questions. So if you're on Twitter, you can send in your questions there. Anybody want to help me with what is it? # The Grid Live? # Grid Live? The Grid Live.
Sure. Sounds good to us.
One of those two. Either one of those two. There we go. Twitter.com/thegridlive. Or you can leave your comments in on the live blog as well, and we have people that'll pick those up there. See, if you just ask the screen will tell you. All right.
Can we even talk about photography?
We could talk about photography,
Oh, cool.
too.
I can do that.
We can talk about anything, Dano.
Okay.
All right. Guys, we're going to take a very quick break, and when we get back, we'll jump right into everything. See you back here in 60 seconds.
The business of photography begins the moment you press the button and click the shutter. But it isn't just about taking great photographs. Whether you're a professional or beginner, you need to learn how to protect yourself and the images you take. I'm New York attorney Ed Greenberg, and along with photographer Jack Resnicki, together we'll walk you through each and every step of the process. We will teach you how to protect your images as well as protect yourself. We'll show you why your model releases are every bit as important as the images you take. So come check out our classes on model releases and copyright registration on kelbytraining.com and only on kelbytraining.com.
Hey, we are back on The Grid Live, and this week our special guest, we have Dano from Epson right in the studio. And Dano, let's kick things off right into the new contest / ad campaign that we're talking about here.
Epson has been running a campaign for the last 3 years called Finish Strong. Before that, a lot of our advertising focused on the technical things. You know, we wanted to know about picoliter drop size, we wanted to know about screening algorithms, thin film piezo, and those are all very important things in what really makes an Epson print. But this campaign was all about celebrating the final print, because in many ways what defines a professional, what defines an advanced amateur, what defines someone who's really concerned about photography is that final print. And this ad campaign has really been about all photographers go through to get to that final image. And it's a bit ironic in that the final image and the printer are a relatively small part of the ad, that the majority of the ad is about the photographer and what it's about to go through all that. And I think we have a couple of them that we could pull up.
Yeah.
I think the first one is an ad that was done with, they're known as the anti-gravity. They're kind of gymnasts, and they wear these springboard things, and they can jump in the air. And we approached a guy named Joe McNally. You may have heard of him.
A couple times.
His name is going to come up here in a little bit.
Does he shoot much?
I hear he's around, he travels. And we went to Joe, and we kind of said, give us a bucket list of images you've always wanted to do. And he said, I always wanted to work with this troupe where they kind of do these amazing acrobatics, but we want to do it in a difficult situation, in this case, off of a rooftop in Manhattan at sunset. And we thought, this really defines what Finish Strong is all about. How do we get that final image?
Yeah.
But as you look at the ad, you know, the final image is coming out of the printer down at the bottom, and it's one of those guys, you know, twirling in the air above the Manhattan skyline. But the majority of the ad, which we call the shot of the shot, is about what you see. You start to see what's going on in that ad. You start to see the lighting, and you start to see the activity, and then also you're going to see a little bit of copy. Photographers may not want to read a lot, but this copy just connects with what it's like to be a photographer. And it's all about all of this just to get one shot and finishing strong. That's one example. And the other thing is the photographers almost always, this is not a requirement, but almost always appear in the image.
Yeah, they're shooting.
Right. So the person who shot this was not Joe. It was his assistant, Drew. Now we worked very carefully in setting that all up. This next image is an aviation shoot, also with a NAP instructor, Moose Peterson. Say, hey, Moose, you know, what's a bucket list image you've always wanted to do? I really want to photograph this very rare Super Corsair warbird. Great. There's only 2 or 3 of these in the world. But in the end, it's not so much for the ad about the image, which is the final image coming out of the printer. And that's real important. That's critical. It's absolutely crucial for Finish Strong. But it's about the emotion of how do you get that image?
Yeah.
What do you go through
I
to
always
get
like
that
this
image?
one. This one I always thought was really cool.
And if you read through the copy, and this is all true, based on our experiences doing this image, you know, we were in the Phoenix area. It was about 100 degrees at dawn. You know, and with another hour, it's too hot to fly. You've got to start there. You've got to coordinate. You've got to do things with pilots, and you do all of this stuff. And what's really what I've noticed through the years is some of the most the best photographs are usually the ones that are the simplest, and yet there's so much that goes on to make that happen. And this image was actually captured by Moose's son, Jake.
Okay.
Now, how do you do that? And with super wide-angle lenses, and how do you deal with the lighting? And there's lots of stuff that goes on. And we can show you a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff on some other images.
You know what? One of my favorite things. So, of course, like you said, the printer and the print coming out. But one of my favorite things about the Finish Strong campaign has always been the photo that shows it all being done is always really cool too.
Well,
you know, like it's an interesting perspective on the photographer doing what they do.
Because it's that final print, and while it's we'll talk about technique, and I know people will call in and they're going to want to know technical stuff, and it's real important to master that. But in the end, printers and software, they're tools to get you to a final place, and it's that print that really defines who you are as a photographer. And you know, in this next one, well, and I have some very interesting behind-the-scenes shots. This is a portrait photographer based in the Pacific Northwest. Her name is Corinne Alavecchios. And she likes to shoot outdoors, and she likes to put people into natural environments. And her thing was, I always wanted to photograph these sisters, you know, on a dock in a river in the Pacific Northwest. And that it seemed this was going to be the easiest shot, at least to some of the art directors and other people involved. And I looked at the layout and I said, oh, watch out. This one is tough. And you know what? I know just the guy to shoot this one, and his name is Joe McNally. So I called up Joe. And I think he was in Australia, and I called him on Skype. Hey, Joe, interested? Oh, yeah, that last thing was great. Are we going to Manhattan? No, we're going to go into a freezing river somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. And we're going to do what? Yeah, and we're going to have to put strobes in the water, and we're going to have to build a dock, and we're going to have to do this. Dano, you know, this is going to be complicated. And I said, yeah, that's why we're talking. And I'll be able to show you some scenes, such as this.
Holy cow.
Because it seemed like, well, a simple thing. We just want to have a dock. Well, finding a dock in the right environment wasn't working for us, so we had to have a dock built. And we're doing this all on the phone. The dock maker is somewhere in Washington State, and Joe's producer is in Connecticut, and Joe's in Australia, and I'm traveling between New York and LA, and we're trying to figure out this dock and what size should it be and how we move it around. And we got the dock there. Oh, the dock looks great. It's distressed. There was only one problem. When people got on the dock, it started bouncing around like crazy. So it was about an hour trying to figure out buoyancy and how we're going to do this, and now we have to sandbag it. And also, this river is a moving river. There's a definite current in there. It's really cold, and this dock kept wanting to go downstream. So it was a constant battle of fighting that. And then for those of you who have not been on photo shoots, what we're doing here is it's not really dangerous, but it could be really dangerous by putting that kind of power pack underwater into rivers with that kind of electricity. And you're going to see tripods, you're going to see stuff because it's just what goes into doing an ad and doing it well and making it look simple, and yet all that goes through. You know,
that guy in that red shirt looks like he's just chilling now. He's just like,
he's well known, and you'll see him come up here in a little bit. But so everything's moving downstream. That ladder kept moving downstream. Now this is a very important photograph. You're going to see Joe really intense, making sure the composition's right, because we always have to figure where the gutter is because it's a double-page spread.
Yeah.
And we're going to make it fit. And Drew is assistant. He's checking that out. And you can see me looking concerned about various things. But really what's going on, because I know this is a subject that comes up on the grid, we think the guy behind me was flatulent.
It's why he's floating, right?
So sometimes it's not always about technique, but it's about, But of course, all that water kind of dampers things a little bit.
You'd never know.
Right. I think there might be a few other images here. So you can see, we're getting closer, and if you look at the final ad, we tried various things. And that's what you do when you're on set. I think a lot of people haven't been on set go, oh, there's the layout, there's the one shot. When you're in this situation, you try everything. You shoot lots of stuff, and the lighting wasn't quite working, so yours truly in his waders will go in there with a fill card. We all chip in. It's our budgets are modest, so we don't have big entourages. We have some people there to keep in mind. And then, of course, I think his name is Grippa, Mike Grippa, Grippy. He's holding on to that light because it wanted to go downstream in the current, and we were a little concerned that much watt seconds in the water it could kill some people.
Yeah, it could send a little spark.
So, it was a very long, cold day, and I think Joe didn't realize what he was getting himself into. But
Joe thrives in those environments.
right.
Though,
Well,
so.
I saw earlier he does a whole course on how to deal with bad weather.
Yeah.
But, but
And
that
you-
is
you-
the final shot.
So behind the scenes, you just brought up a pretty cool concept. Behind the scenes, that class that Joe did. If anybody's a Kelby training subscriber, one of the classes Joe did was shooting in bad weather.
Mm-hmm.
But what's pretty cool about just about how nimble everybody was in that whole situation, the class Joe came down to do was nothing to do with that. It almost had everything to do with shooting in cloudless. Like I think we were trying to do a class and just like shooting in just harsh daylight.
Mm-hmm.
There's no clouds in the sky, and what do you do? And when Joe came down to do it, we just didn't have that weather. And it was just everybody was so cool, and Joe especially about just adapting to it. And like we're shooting this stuff, and I still remember getting the call because I was traveling.
Yeah.
I still remember getting a call, somebody saying, "Hey, all we have is crappy weather." And then somebody, I think RC or Nicole, suggested, well, "Why don't we do a bad weather class?"
That's actually a key component of the whole Finish Strong campaign and the contest we'll talk about in a little bit is flexibility, adaptability, and then when the pressure's on, how do you perform? If we look at that, the ad we did of the anti-gravity dancers on the Manhattan skyline, we had 2 locations scouted out in case of bad weather. One was going to be an indoor location, and one was the roof. We wanted the roof.
Yeah.
The indoor was pretty cool. It was going to be in the Brooklyn Navy Yards, and it was going to be kind of interesting. But Joe and I agreed to talk at 5 a.m. We got the weather reports. It was supposed to be cloudy, but that could work, so we green-lighted it. We're going to go for the roof. And this is like noontime. Not the greatest picture in the world, but it kind of tells you what's going on. And we're setting up, and there's the crew, and we're looking at the digital stuff, but we're looking up at the sky, and the clouds are rolling in. It's like, here we go. And that's like all of the planning, and everyone just went into real professional mode. And Joe was there about you start changing the shutter speed, you start dragging the shutter, you start doing everything you can because you're committed to make the very best picture possible. And it all fit in perfectly with what Finish Strong is all about. So weather is a component, and it was a component in all of these images. The best image, of course, is through Joe's camera, not this particular one.
Yeah. That's awesome, though.
But that gives you a flavor of what goes into these shots, and we were by dragging the shutter, as I mentioned, and by doing things with lighting and changing things on the fly, making decisions, sometimes with only minutes to spare.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. And if you go through all of that, it's really about it's
finishing.
the print. It's that print that really says what it's all about. So the contest.
Yeah. So how does this all tie in?
A lot of people have come up to us in the Photoshop world. Man, I really love that stuff. Oh, I really connected with Joe and these other photographers. I have these great ideas, and we were thinking, there's a lot of ideas we've been kicking around, but wouldn't it be interesting to have a contest where people could submit their idea for what Finish Strong is, and to do this in writing. And the grand prize winner has a choice of either $5,000 in cash or, and what we think would be more interesting for most people, actually be a part of and come to the shoot. And the photographer, again, is going to be Joe McNally.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
They almost kind of get to dictate, like...
Dictate would not be the right word.
Yeah, no. Think up.
Well,
visualize.
So the contest is, and this is really important, we're looking for what the idea is. And you have to think, this is an unusual campaign because you think, I'm going to show off that thin film piezo technology from Epson and all that tonal value. No, it's about what photographers go through. And we catch ourselves doing this too when we're planning these. We kind of go to that final shot that's coming out of the printer.
Yeah.
You have to think, what's the idea that shows the shot of the shot?
Yeah.
What we just showed here was
'Cause that's
behind
what
the
the,
scenes of the shot of the shot. But so the idea has to capture the essence of what Finish Strong is about. Has to be able to be executed in a way where you can do the shot of the shot as the double page spread, along with an amazing image coming out of the printer. And that other image coming out of the printer will also be shown at trade shows and various things like that. Yeah. So it's quite a challenge, but we're looking for the idea.
Okay.
And
so
then,
you're not looking for photos. It's not a photo contest.
It is not a photo contest. It's an idea contest. And the idea can be submitted online at epson.com/Finish Strong Contest.
Cool.
And there's a little example there, something maybe. And please, you know, no need to follow, oh, I'm going to do an underwater scene with a seamless and going to have a woman swimming by. That's just to kind of get the creativity started.
I was going to say, what I meant by dictate was more like they're visually, like you're almost coming up with the idea that Joe's going to go shoot one day. You know, and that's what I thought was kind of neat about it. You know?
Right. It'll be, and it really depends on the idea. It may very well be that if the winner wants to come to the shoot, and we can apply all the travel expenses, et cetera, to that winning thing. We may brainstorm. You may be in with the advertising agency about how we're going to pull this off. It might be that person might even be in the shot, because that's the perfect photographer in the shot. It kind of depends.
Yeah,
on
you don't know until you
we don't know
the
what
idea.
that is. But you'll definitely have interaction in the real world on a real live ad shoot.
Awesome. So Epson.com/finish strong contest.
Correct.
Enter,
and you'll see the information. It's pretty easy to fill out. It's a 200-word max essay. Photographers, less words might be fine.
Some people get wordy.
And it's going to be judged on 3 criteria. 50% of the judging of each essay, which is about an idea. I want to clarify that, you know, we're just after the idea. Is its relevance to the Finish Strong campaign? Does it really capture what photographers go through to get to that final defining print? 25% of it will be about the creativity involved at capture. And this is something that's, I think, real important to clarify, especially for the Photoshop audience. Oh, we're going to do everything in post and we'll never see a photographer.
It's all composite. White seamless.
The majority of the image should be, what does it take in order to do this at capture?
Okay.
And then we use Photoshop, Lightroom, imaging software, other things to, you know, to bring it to fruition and finish that strong. And then 25% is practicality. There are some wild, crazy ideas, and trust me, I've been in some of his brainstorms, and it's like, we're
Pete back there is one of our guys is Pete, and he's over there saying space shuttle. So
I don't think those are flying right now.
Yeah,
but maybe if you have some connections, and there's no cost to those things. So people, are thinking, well, geez, you know, if you tell me what the budget is, then I can work from there. The only thing I can really advise is, you know, look at the previous Finish Strong ads, and those ads are on the website, and take a look at those, and that'll give you a flavor of the general budget and the kind of dollars it would take to pull this off.
And is there an end date to when they can submit?
It is live now, and the end date is April 15th.
April 15th.
So it's not that far away.
Get online, get your ideas. You don't have to shoot a thing. Just come up with cool ideas.
Now, there's 2 more really cool pictures.
Oh.
Now, if you are the winner and if you choose to come to the shoot, then you get to do what every professional photographer insists on doing, and that's the group shot if it's successful. And, and I've been, only once it wasn't successful, but, you know. And here's the group shot. After we did the anti-gravity dancers on the rooftop in Manhattan. It was actually dark, but, you know, that's where Photoshop can really help out. And you're going to see that, you know, there's a bunch of people there. Now, this is a very important picture because we were doing a little group shot, and there's Joe in the middle, and that's Drew on his right, and that's Mike Grippa, if I have the name right, on the left. Now, Grippa's main job during the shoot was to keep that dock from floating downstream. Well, when he got into the shot, then the dock started floating downstream, and that's why a combination of being in ice-cold water for 4.5 hours, seeing the dock roll downstream led to this type of expression. So while I doubt we would want to go back and repeat something in the water exactly like this, you too, if you're the winner, might be in this picture.
Think Caribbean, warm water. All right, cool. So guys, get online, enter the contest. Sounds like, can I enter?
No, I can't either.
All right.
But yeah, it's
I wonder
open
if
to,
I wonder if Matt Kozlowski,
Mark
Kozlowski can enter.
Is that with a Y in the end or an I?
You know, that's the most common mispronunciation of my name. It's Kloskowski,
but I think it's important to know that any amateur photographer can enter, professionals can enter. But if you work for a photographic manufacturer, you know, me, I'm disqualified. I think you kind of would be disqualified, you know. But it's open to all, and it's about the idea.
Cool. All right, so that takes care of contest number 1. We're going to take a very quick break. When we get back, we'll talk about, we'll judge live the other contest, and then we'll jump into some questions about printing and the state of printing and all that fun stuff with Dano. See you back here in just a minute. Hey, we are back live on the grid with Dano from Epson, and we're going to. Oh, we do have a very quick special though. One of the things that people can do is so Peach Pit, who publishes all of our books here, they give us like an ebook deal every so often, so you get like 40% off of an ebook. So the one that you get 40% off now is plugins with On1 software with Nicole Young. The ebook price is originally $31.99, and you get it for $19.19. Just use the code KelbyTV. Yes, KelbyTV. KelbyTV. Just use that code.
Well,
get it for $19.99. I know. I was looking over there. I wasn't looking over there, but unfortunately, that is blurry to me over there too. I think I need my prescription kind of changed a little bit. Anyway, all right. So next up, so we got a contest. This was a contest that was done through the NAPP with ViewBug, and so what they did is they had a whole bunch of people submit entries to this contest, and we're gonna judge live here. What we have is the top 20. So they've already gone through, and the top 20 are already done. From there, we pick one winner. That grand prize winner wins all expense paid to Photoshop World. Not just a Photoshop World ticket, but you get your hotel, your flight, everything. We have 3 first place winners, which you will get a 1-year subscription to Kelby Training and 1 year to NAP. And then 10 runner-ups, which gets a 1-year membership to NAP and a $50 B&H gift card. All right, so I'm going to bring up the photos really quick here on my computer. And I just want to run through. These are the top 20 finalists. All right, so I'm going to run through, and then we'll kind of go through, do a little bit of judging here. We've kind of looked at them before just because we didn't want this to be the first time. That one kind of makes a big impact when there's more black around it. Because we saw it cropped. It's really...
That looks like a door knocker.
Yeah. Who's the puppy? There we go. I think we got a couple. Almost done. There we go. So that's it. So those are our top 20 finalists. I thought first we'd go over the winners, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about a few of the images and kind of just give some thoughts behind them. So with no further ado, the winner, the grand prize winner, is ready, right there. No drum roll, but that is our grand prize winner. So this person will get a all expense paid trip to Photoshop World Orlando. So congratulations. And then our runner-ups. So our runner-ups are, who's the doggy? Sorry, just had to do it. And then we also have the butterfly and the FJ Cruiser. I thought that was pretty cool. All the stormy clouds and everything in back. So a couple thoughts, because Dano, we sat down and I had the guys sit down before we were on the show here, just to kind of go through the images and not only just pick images, but just kind of give a couple of thoughts of what might improve some of the images. We really liked I thought the comments on this one were pretty interesting.
Yeah, when I saw this, I think we're attracted to that level of saturation of color. But there's something that and I do all of the trade show selection and printing in the Epson booth at various trade shows, and I've noticed that the eye will always go to light areas, and the upper left-hand corner and the whole left-hand side kind of draws your eye away from the main subject matter of the clown and the entrance into the clown. And if this were cropped a lot tighter, it would probably be a more impactful photograph. And
we can do that. Because we did it before, and it actually, we thought, made a big difference. And I'd probably go in there and clone that out. But just to show you different crop.
Mm-hmm. And possibly even lighten up the clown's face, drop down some of the dents in the upper right. I don't mean to art direct this image, but it had the makings for some great stuff because often the great pictures, just like in Finish Strong, are simple and elegant and impactful.
Yeah, there was a lot of that here. Like I thought this one had a really good start to it. It's got a neat concept. I think Dano even brought out it lost its focus mainly. Like there's a lot of stuff going on over here on the right hand side.
It's like you just needed to have her walk out to the end of the pier, move out there a little bit more, and eliminate all that stuff, which gets in the way of what you're trying to communicate.
Let me see here. So this one, the guys kind of like this one too, and I did too. I mean, it struck me, the main problem was the color contrast between that and the rocks behind. You have to it's the red on the red, and it just...
Yeah, I look at that and wish it was 3 hours later towards sunset, and those rocks were down, and those...
exactly,
that
not quite as hot.
Jumping out more.
Yeah, exactly. That would have done it too. By the way, the theme of the contest was basically anything that represented dreams, hope, and fantasy. And I think you can see that through as you look throughout there. They have over 3,500 entries to it too. Let's see, what were some of the other ones that we kind of... So here was one, and when you send this, so if you have to look at who is judging this, and when you send this to a bunch of Photoshop guys, it's hard not to see, because Photoshop guys immediately know, okay, this isn't real. She's not really lifted up by her umbrella, and so we immediately go to the reflection, and we know that this reflection is most likely real. And then you start coming over here, and you're like, wow, that is a perfect reflection.
And you guys were brutal on that, but I just thought it could be improved with
we
a little bit more contrast.
We liked the idea of the photo. We weren't brutal on that. It was just...
Yeah, but also a little more contrast.
So, and
would really kind of
and you
make
said
that
especially
pop.
because you're a big black and white guy.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, you know what could help that photo is just a simple whites and blacks adjustment. I think.
Boom. Yeah.
Right there just helps it go a long way.
Yeah, but the reflection's still there.
Yeah, and that's the only problem.
But it really had the makings of a really nice picture.
Yeah, and then so this one was another good example. Neat concept. Bad time of day. Bad. Was it casting?
Yeah, it felt like, wow, you had this great aircraft, and then got so wrapped up in the aircraft.
Literally.
lost concept of, everything, all the other elements. It's just...
Because you could have made them more of a star of the photo and still shown that this was a plane and a cool aircraft.
And in my bizarre, personal photography, if you see some of the stuff I shoot, I think just the two legs, you could crop right in and see an interesting geometric relationship between the two legs and the wing. But again, it's just it's 6 hours too early, depending on time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the plane going
Speaking
overhead
of
right now.
planes.
Yeah, cool.
Actually sounds like a jet too.
Right.
Corey suggested make it a little more nostalgic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of what Pete just said, because Corey was looking in on this too, is giving it a more of a nostalgic type of a treatment to it, because it has that feeling.
Yeah, but that type of image, to pull it off well, can get actually kind of complicated and kind of expensive.
Yeah.
The casting and hair and makeup and clothing, and to really nail it well. It reminded me of an image done by Greg Gorman, I think for the movie Pearl Harbor. And it's an image of the star, Ben Affleck. Similar looking plane, but the light, I mean, it's just that perfect end of day light, along with additional light to make that happen. And the same kind of beard that you've got going, just kind of like an end of the day thing. But it's cast and it's beautiful. But to do that well, you might need 20 people.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then I thought this was a good one just to kind of finish up with. We all like this one a lot, but the darkness, it was almost too much. You kind of lost definition. It's almost like, part of his mouth, his face goes away, it goes into black.
Yeah, the old tabletop photographer in me looked at that, and you lose the side of the face, so you don't know if the lower jaw is actually the lower jaw or part of that piece of jewelry.
Yeah.
It's just kind of floating there.
Yeah.
And that requires, however this was done, it needs more light, either via fill cards or some type of additional lighting source.
But good start. Great stuff, too. So congratulations to everybody that made it into the top 20, and hopefully we'll see a lot of good stuff coming from them soon. So, all right. So, Dano, let's jump into a couple of questions here. I think one of the things that I hear a lot of people asking out there is just the state of printing. You work with Epson, so you're kind of out there all the time. You're out at the trade shows. You're talking to people. You're talking to pros, but you're also talking to people that are just hobbyist photographers. So I think you kind of have the gamut in everybody that's printing.
Was that a pun intended?
No, but I guess. But the state of printing today. Where are we at with it? You hear a lot of people say print's dead, but I think, and honestly, I was one of them for a while, and have severely changed my thought process on that. Just within my own family, like seeing what prints do for my kids who never had any ties to prints. They never had Polaroids. They never had any of that stuff, and to see what actually having the print does for them, I totally changed on my whole thing that everything's going to Facebook now. I think families, I think hobbyists, professional, I think everybody still loves to have a print.
Well, I come from a somewhat biased perspective too, representing Epson. But my general 100,000-foot take is that printing is not growing. It's kind of here. The number of exposures being taken has dramatically risen due to iPhones and a variety of other things and ease of cranking out a lot of stuff. And a lot of it has to do with, with film, it was always in the back of your mind, it costs money. I had to buy the film, I had to process the film. With digital, even though an argument could be made, well, now you have to pay to store all of those images, and now you have to get all that stuff. But because of that, a whole lot more images are being taken. But what I don't see is, we wish, and I think we're working on that, can we get people to print more to keep up with that? Yeah. But I don't see printing go away. So I think there's a little bit of that perception, because a lot of things that go onto social media, maybe you don't want to be making a print of. There's snapshots and things like that, and that's all great. Any type of imaging is great, and the quality of some cameras, just my iPhone is shocking sometimes.
We'll make a nice print.
Is it a real digital SLR? No. Will it get there someday? We'll have to see what comes out of those companies.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the professional markets and the serious amateur markets, the print is still defines you as who you are. I was recently at a leading artist representatives agency. They work with some of the big name photographers. And I asked the same question. It was over the summer. Gee, can you just walk in with a photographer's portfolio on a tablet? Be it a Galaxy or it's an iPad. And they just took me into a room, and this is one of the leading places in New York, and it was just filled with portfolio cases. And the answer was absolutely not.
Really?
And it's because there's something about when you're representing one of the best talents in the world and going to an advertising agency who is responsible for the brand of some of the biggest brand names in the world, there's something about holding that print in your hands, and there's that tactile kind of thing that says quality, care, reverence, the way it should be. and people look at prints longer. People go through tablets and phones. They scroll.
Yeah.
You never see people with prints,
That's true.
Cranking them out.
Yeah, you can't. Well, you can't. You just can't take a portfolio like that.
Well, sometimes, but
You could, but
and that was a real eye opener for me. And this is where, the subject of what paper should I be using comes up. Oh, a trade show. It's behind glass, and I was talking about luster paper. But these prints and these portfolios, these were on fine art papers. This was on hot press natural, this one particular book. And I asked why. It's just something about the feel. There's a thickness, there's a look, there's a three-dimensionality, even though it's only, 12 mils thick or whatever. And it just says, okay, I'm arrived. I'm in the big time, with the big world. And the photographer they were representing, he was based in Germany. A very big name. And I said, being the Epson guy, because with fine art papers, the watermark's not on the back. It's not like luster. You can tell what it is. What is it? Oh, they called him up, So what? And it was, hot press natural. And I asked why, for those same reasons. And the photographer couldn't explain it. So there's just something about it that helps. And I think that's what it is. It's a psychological thing, an emotional thing.
And what's interesting is because some of the things you said strike a chord with me, and I didn't really even develop this thought until just sitting here listening to you. But we still definitely have that tie to a print. I've had my images displayed at trade shows and whatnot, and they've been on a digital screen, and it's cool. I mean, it's nice. It's always flattering to get asked, but when you walk by and you see your images displayed in a print somewhere in a booth, it does make more of an impact for you. Just to I'm standing there, I'm taking pictures of it and everything like that. Because it is a kind of like you said, it's not only just taking the picture, but it's the feel. It's in its final place. Like this is where it's supposed to be. Or when it's on a screen, you're like, I just emailed that and then threw it up there. I guess you kind of know the care taken when it comes to a print is maybe a little bit more. Well,
and print making is that. It's a craft.
Absolutely.
It can be an automated process, and many labs do that, and we certainly have products that work in those materials. But being a printer is saying that it's a form of craftsmanship, and it's irrelevant if it's analog or digital, and it's real easy for all of us, especially guys. I'm convinced of this. We love to get into the gears and the stuff and and all that, and it's all important. But the really successful people, they get into the emotion and the capture and what it's all about, and the print will always win.
Good thoughts. All right, we do have to take a very quick break. When we come back from that, I want to continue this, and I also want to take advantage of you being here just to kind of talk to people a little bit about how to make that great print, some of the keys that go into just from your years of experience,
the tech stuff.
What gets into making a great print? And of course a great image too. So, but we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break, and more with Dano.
I can't wait to do this again.
Hello, we are back live on the grid with Dano Steinhardt from Epson, and our discussion is we're talking about printing here. We have some questions, so before we even continue the discussion, I thought we should jump into some questions. So, Brian Hanna, is local printing even feasible for delivering to customers? Cost versus Sam's Club or elsewhere?
And it depends is the best way to answer that. But many labs, and that could be a professional lab or some of the places we talked about here, most of them are using inkjet technology. Some are still using C-print technology. And it depends on your volume, and it depends on the quality. And the key thing is, I find, especially if you're looking at like one of these places that was mentioned, can they provide profiles for you? If they say, what's a profile? Maybe that's not the place you want to be going to. But
good point.
But there was a time when, in the early days of Epson technology, it empowered photographers to do things themselves. And our goal was never to put labs out of business. Our goal was, to get people to print more. And some people prefer to go to a lab. We just hope that they have the Epson technology there and those signature-worthy papers.
All right, so next question from Andrique. Are the final images and or behind-the-scenes shots, so concerning the contest,
yes,
the Finish Strong contest,
yeah,
are the final images or behind-the-scenes shots available online somewhere?
Yes, actually, if you could pull up the website, and that's epson.com/Finish Strong Contest. And if we scroll down there a little bit, keep scrolling. There, do you see, it says...
Click to view entire ad.
Uh-oh, sorry guys, it's official. I'm getting older. Yes, past Finish Strong. If you click on that, you will see the ad and the final image. Now, this was a very interesting one I'd like to talk about. We didn't mention it earlier. I work closely with these amazing wedding photographers in Manhattan, and it's called Fred Marcus Photography, and Brian Marcus and Andy Marcus are the photographer's father and son. And we were talking about Finish Strong, and they do all the normal wedding pictures, and they do a lot of very high-end weddings in New York. But what they love to do is just to go out in the streets and shoot and just take it extemporaneously. And I said, oh, that's interesting. That might be interesting. Where would you like to do this? Well, we have this big wedding, and it's down on Wall Street. And wouldn't it be great if we just started walking down the financial district in Wall Street? So this is literally taken on Wall Street. I was there with this. And the whole bridal party started coming by, and the entourage must have been, no, it was on a Saturday. There must have been at least 1,000 people, and they all wanted in on the shot. And what a what a great photo album for these people 30 years later. Whomever look at this stuff and all these people. Yeah, we got married on Wall Street. But that's cool. And then here's another thing about the idea and the Finish Strong contest. This is a good example of the shot of the shot does not have to completely match the final shot, but it should be close.
Okay.
So you can see in the final shot, it's a close-up of the bride and the groom, and it captures everything about great
But it's
wedding.
not necessarily them in that shot, they're doing.
It's not a cropped-in version of the shot of the
Okay.
shot. So that's
Good
where you
to
can
know.
look at those other images.
All right, let's see. We have Jay Delos. First we have Charles Putnam. I went to junior and senior high school with Dano.
It's embarrassing.
Sorry to hear that, Charles.
It's embarrassing when your past catches up with you, but I do remember Charles, and he probably remembers me with a lot more hair.
Y'all used slate back then, didn't you?
Yeah. So I used to have a pick that I used to keep in there, and I could shake, and it wouldn't move around. Yeah. Hey,
Did you even have cameras back then, Dano? Sorry.
Sure, we had to wind.
So have you not talked to him since?
I think there was an email where he saw me on one of maybe a Photoshop world, but I haven't seen him. But cool. It's terrific, and great to hear from you, Charles.
All right, let's see. Jay Delos, if you want people to print more, bring down the cost of ink. See, I think that's BS. Because I think if you took the cost of a package of paper and the cost of ink, you would have much less than the cost of sending a print to a lab.
Yeah, there is this perception, and there's no good way around it than try to explain it. But if you need to go purchase ink, you're purchasing ink for many prints at one time. Mm-hmm. And you see that bill, and you go, oh my gosh, it seems really expensive. But the cost per milliliter of ink per image done is so small that it's a tremendous cost savings over going to a lab.
Yeah.
On images beyond letter size. You know, if you're getting down to 4x6, and there's other products for that.
Yeah.
But it's completely understandable when you, I'm going to buy.
It's probably the most common thing I hear whenever I talk printing at a seminar or a convention, wherever it happens to be. It's the most common thing that you hear is people will say how much ink costs, and if you are going to look at it as one print or even two printers, it's not until you're actually using that ink and going through it and printing good prints.
Now, in some schools, including my alma mater at Brooks Institute, students there will pay per print because they're all hooked in with 20 printers into a system, so they'll only pay for ink and 20 cents at a time. And that's like, that's nothing. But when you have to buy the whole cartridge, and of course our cartridges have gotten larger, ironically, to bring the cost per print down, there can be that perception. So I understand, but I like your answer.
That's bull. Well, you know what it is, and Dano and I have talked about this before, because part of the thing of why I like to have Dano on and why I always like to include you in whatever we can is A, you're a kick butt photographer. You know photography. He's got what's your website?
It's dansteinhardt.com.
dansteinhardt.com. Yeah. So go to his website. You will absolutely agree. Dano is a kick-butt photographer. You know photography. You know the printing business. And one of the things that we've talked about before is you guys, as Epson, not you, but as Epson, you want people to have successful printing experiences. Because you don't want them to buy a whole slew of ink and then go through and get frustrated and just have to go buy more ink.
Well, and there's several programs in Kelby training when we spend a lot of time on color management because we want people to calibrate their monitors. We want people to understand profiles. So you're not wasting ink and paper and getting frustrated. It's not like the old darkroom days in color where basically you had to make a print and there was a thing called a ring around. I don't know if you ever did things with a color darkroom and you go, okay, well, and then you start making 7, 8 prints, different color things, trying to get close. The beauty about the digital workflow is you can nail it, so you can focus on making the print. Or and especially if you get into fine art reproduction, digital printing, getting really close, and then doing little nuances that make that craftsmanship.
So and I think it's all about people get a good print, they're happy with their print, they buy more ink, they buy more paper. You guys are happy, they're happy. Everybody's happy.
I can't argue with that.
It's everybody's happy with their photos. So let's see here. Gene Fernandez. How long will ink and paper last if in a frame on a wall? Will they fade over time? How much time?
It's a long answer to many factors in there.
Ballpark it.
Well, but let me give you the parameters to think about when you're talking about that. Any print behind glass is always better than a print it's just exposed to the elements. Because if it's UV blocking glass, then that will greatly enhance the longevity of a print. But all glass blocks a certain level of UV. And also now comes, where is that glass in relationship to a window on the wall or UV, in the room? And different papers will do different things, and different inks will do different things, and how inks and papers interact. So there's multiple things that go into the discussion. But key things are, you want to be looking primarily at pigment-based ink technology, which has much better light fastness. There have been dramatic improvements in dye-based inks recently. So the days of, dyes are terrible, I would never touch it. There's some dye-based technologies coming out in some of the products that are just like pigments. So you want to kind of, if you're really serious about print longevity, conservation, these types of things, you want to start drilling down into a whole variety of things. But no longer is it, dye is bad. In the early days, dyes were bad. They would fade sometimes in a short amount of time.
So pigment-based, dye-based, if I have an Epson 4900 and I go order a set of ink, what am I getting? I'm getting pigment-based, correct?
Yeah, the 4900, the majority of the professional printers from Epson use pigment-based ink.
So where would I even get dye? Is that an upcoming thing, like something?
There are dyes in some of the desktop, more consumer-oriented printers that some people are using. There is a new product that we have, not necessarily for people watching this particular show, but very exciting. And it's called SureLab. It'll be at some trade shows, and it's essentially a dry lab. And it uses dye-based inks. And those dye-based inks, with the type of papers on there, are remarkable longevity.
Cool.
And dye-based inks have always had wider gamut. Always will, because of just they're aqueous in water versus a particle, which is pigment.
Okay.
So it's no longer it used to be dye-based inks.
Yeah.
Oh my God, are you crazy? It should, look at it carefully. But
So going back to their question about how long. So let's say I've got my.
you want that one number?
Well, okay. So let's say I've got my print hanging on this wall.
Yeah.
And it's what is this? 10 feet away from a window that.
Yeah.
It is glass covered. It's in a frame that's glass. I mean,
Yeah.
ballpark.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to hold
Yeah.
you. It was not
Yeah.
27 and a half
Yeah.
years, Dan.
And I'm going to have to hold my ground.
Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere.
And I'm going to have to hold my ground only because I've been involved in a variety of organizations, including even the ISO on this subject.
Yeah.
For years, they're trying to find that standard in that what is the average room light level, and that's
Yeah.
measured in lux, is at 450, and then accelerated testing. Then there's so many things. And also, this would not be from any product from Epson, but I have seen documented cases of prints fading in the dark because of ink and paper mismatches from different manufacturers. So
what you're telling me is you're not going to give me
I'm not going to
no
do it.
year,
You're
no, not even a
You're not going to
ballpark.
coax me into it. Here's what I can say.
Can we say more than 10?
Here's what I'll say. Give
More
me
than 20?
If we
Do I have
take, I can
21?
only speak to Epson products. And let's say luster paper.
Okay.
And we were talking about luster paper.
Luster paper.
Luster paper is a microporous paper.
Okay.
Now, for us guys who lost hair, like my old friend Charles remembered me with hair, we used to call those RC papers. RC used to be terrible. RC is actually really
RC
good
still
now.
is terrible, by the way.
Yeah, that's a different RC. But I wonder if, and he doesn't even like RC papers. Isn't that? I never thought of that before. But luster paper with a pigment-based ink, such as off of the 3000, the 38.
Yeah.
80, which is the Ultrachrome K3 with Vivid Magenta, and then the Ultrachrome HDR.
I hear
luster
time frame
paper
coming.
Behind the glass.
I hear a time frame coming
Normal room light, significantly better than any C print.
Remember when I said I liked having you on the show, Dano? I don't like having you on the show.
But here's the thing. If you look to independent third parties who have done a lot of these measurements, they would say... Now,
Yes, what would they say?
They would say that particular combination that I gave you in room lighting, which is very debatable,
Pulling it out of you, Dano.
worst case scenario, 60 years.
Okay.
Best case scenario, I've seen that over 100 years. But there's so many variables.
All right, so guys, it is said today, Dan Steinhardt from Epson says, your prints, no matter what, will last for 100 years. Printed on Epson ink and paper and from Epson.
You'll just have to come find me in 100 years to see how that all worked out.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's a serious topic, especially for those that are selling collectible works.
Yeah.
And if they're working with galleries and museums, and there's so many factors, including, and again, I only bring this up because it is a topic of discussion on the grid. There's a well-known thing in print conservation known as gaseous pollutants. And a gaseous pollutant can have an adverse effect on certain cotton fiber papers.
All right. Good to know. All right, Richard. Richard says, at least make the ink cartridges bigger. It costs way more to print at home when half your ink goes to cleaning your heads each time. I'll make 3 prints and have to replace at least one color every time.
Is he talking about an Epson printer?
You did make ink cartridges bigger, aren't they?
Yeah. Here's the thing in general about Epson Pro printers, and I think many of your audience are using the Epson Stylus Pro printers. These are workhorses. They want to print a lot. They like to print a lot. If you're not using the printer for long periods of time and you leave the printer on, or if you leave them in very dry, less humid environments, that's where you can run into some issues. So, if you're someone who, I go 6 months without printing, and it's not an uncommon thing that we'll hear at trade shows. Make sure that the printer is turned off and kept, if possible, in some type of environment that isn't terribly dry, so there's a certain level of humidity.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, so we're just about out of time here. I see you have like a couple things written down on there.
Yeah.
And just they look overall like just some final parting tips on printing. So I hate to have you go without giving us a couple of just things that you hear that people are missing out there of why they're not getting good prints.
Well, when you said, "Hey, Dano, after this Finish Strong contest thing, let's talk about printing," I was going, "Uh-oh." So this was like 5 minutes ago before we went on the air. So I thought I would share with you the mistakes that I've made.
Okay.
These are a little embarrassing, but I think, I'll share.
You'd never know by looking at your portfolio. But
people often say, "Gosh, my prints aren't sharp." It's not the printer. It's the photographer. It's motion. It's not using now tripods. Especially if you look at my work. There's in some of the bad neighborhoods I like to take pictures in. You don't have the opportunity to put the tripod down. You've got to shoot like that. But if you want really sharp prints, use a tripod or use a shutter speed where you're not going to get the motion of the camera. This is one of those areas where sometimes it's called chimping or monkey motion. That on social media sites, on small tablets, you're not going to notice that. But when you go to make a 11 by 14, 13, 19 print, that's where you'll notice some of that. So,
yeah.
So and yours truly has been there too, where boy, this print isn't really sharp. And I go, yeah, well, I was running down the street and I was too lazy to bring the tripod.
Now, would you also suggest to people that, because we all know, as photographers, what do? Here's a print on the wall, and we go like this.
Yes.
So, would you also suggest to people that sometimes, you can stand back, and it looks better.
Yeah. Yeah, but that doesn't fly.
No, because I've been to many stores where you see this. I've been to a Sports Authority, and you see this huge Under Armour, poster thing on the wall, and then I get up and look close to it. And I'm like, well, that's actually kind of blurry.
Well, so there is a scientific way to determine the correct viewing distance of a print, and it is twice the diagonal. Except if you're a photographer, then it's only limited by the length of your nose.
6 inches, yeah.
Yeah. I can only point out that I've seen other companies, this would never happen at Epson, if you go to a trade show where they do put up a pipe and drape to kind of force you away a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
We would never do that, at least while I'm printing all this stuff in the booth.
There's a cool comment. So Riker, it looks like Riker VP says, I personally like Epson print inks. I've sold over 4,000 canvases last year and not one return. Wow. I want to see his website. See if he's listening. Send in his website. I'd love to see it's 4,000 canvases. Holy crap.
Sure.
My prints are doing great. I printed back in Photoshop 4, which was at least 100 years ago. On an Epson printer.
Oh, one of those prints faded by then.
All right, so use a tripod, sharp photos.
Okay. So this one's really embarrassing. As printers have been out there now, and they're 10 years ago, it was kind of exotic to have an Epson printer, and people have 2, 3, and I in my home office I print everything for trade shows, as I mentioned, so I have every Epson printer there is, to the great consternation of my wife, because some of them are down in the basement in different places. And this has happened to me twice, where I've print, and I get the dancing, you got a problem icon, which, and we see that thing, and you get the printer icon, and it's dancing. I can't tell you how much time I've wasted because I just didn't select the right printer.
This damn thing's not working.
And I was drilling down into, okay, it's got to be something with the Ethernet. I tried this USB 3 and the connectivity, and I'm going to networking, and I'm calling, the people I know. How do I just didn't select the right printer, because sometimes in those pull-down menus, you got 6, 7, 8 of these things. Some of them you haven't even owned for 3 years. You gave them away. Get rid of those things. So minimize the number of printers in your computer if you're not using them.
Okay.
And then if you see the thing, you might just not have selected the right printer. That's happened to me a few times.
I won't think worse of you for that, Dano.
Now here's one, and this one's kind of personal to me, because I got a phone call, literally, this was last week, from a person. He called my cell phone, and it was a guy I could tell he's from Brooklyn. Is this Dano Steinhardt? And someone's looking for money, or something's going on. And he was complimenting me on a Kelby training program we did on black and white.
Oh, okay. I remember that.
But then he said, well, as long as I've got you, I've got a question. So I thought, oh, this is good. I didn't tell him I didn't get permission, but I think he'll be okay with this. He was saying, I'm getting these kind of problems, so I just said, take me through the workflow. And, I'm using ProPhoto RGB, just like you said. Oh, that's great. And I always select ProPhoto RGB. Really? Oh, that's great. And I make sure I select ProPhoto RGB. And I thought, oh, okay. It's a little confusing, but when you're selecting the printer profile, and depending on how many printers you have in there.
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah. You hit that button, and boy, you can get a whole long list of stuff. Some of it's not always the most intuitive sounding, or sometimes it gets really tiny. But this person was selecting ProPhoto RGB as a printer profile, as opposed to selecting, in this case, I think he was using the Epson 3880 with premium luster paper instead of selecting that profile.
If you pull up my computer here, I can even show you. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. So when you're inside a Lightroom and you'd have a profile area in Photoshop, you can come down here to Other. If you show all your, like there's Adobe RGB, the Apple RGB, if you scroll down, because it's alphabetical.
Those are the correct ones.
So instead of choosing one of these profiles that we're supposed to choose, he was coming down here and actually clicking on ProPhoto RGB.
Because I had drilled into those lessons, use ProPhoto RGB for the maximum gamut. So you just don't want to use it as a printer profile.
Gotcha. That's a good tip.
Okay. I've got two more.
Two more.
Okay.
We got about 2 minutes. So.
Oh, okay. Soft proofing, which used to be, a controversial subject. And all soft proofing means is applying a way to look at the monitor to see how the print's going to look. Because in our society, we want things contrasty and brighter, and we love those monitors, and we've talked a lot about calibrating monitors. I like soft proofing for a couple of reasons. It helps you to determine the rendering intent between relative, colorimetric, and perceptual. That's less and less of an issue as you get to wider and wider gamut inks than it used to be. But it also forces you to realize that you're putting ink on paper. And when you put ink on paper, you're putting dots onto substrates where ink blends, and you're putting it onto substrates that absorb light and don't reflect light. It's just like projectors. We were talking about projectors earlier. Projector technology, and similar to monitors, they use red, green, and blue light. In fact, that's all you need to make all the color of the spectrum. You're dealing with electromagnetic radiation. There's no dots. It's pure. It's clean. You put more colors into that, you're not necessarily going to get better color or more color. But when you get into printing, you need more color to overcome all of these hurdles of changing that light source into a dot, into something that's going to get absorbed, into a variety of things that break up the tonal transitions. So you need those additional colors to smooth out the tonal transitions to overcome this inherent problem with the physics of paper. And soft proofing forces you to, it's a reality check. Because we still get people saying, well, my prints just don't have the life the monitor has, and it never will.
Yeah, yeah.
It just
got this big bright light behind it.
Right. So, soft proofing.
Really quick question on it, because we definitely do have to go. If I don't soft proof, the printer will force those colors into. Correct? Is soft proofing helping me do it a little bit better?
Well, if you are,
let's say the reds. Let's say soft proofing shows me my reds are not going to reproduce correctly.
With the wider gamut printers, like the ones that use the HDR ink, the rendering intent becomes less relevant. But let's say you have an extremely wide gamut image, and you're trying to print it onto paper that won't hold that. By soft proofing, you're going to be able to see, how the printer could remap the gamut, or what control you want to put into it to remap the gamut.
Okay.
Most people would like to have the control versus the printer.
Okay. And your last tip?
My last tip is, if you're using one paper, experiment with 3 or 4. If you're using 20 papers, experiment with 3 or 4. This is the big thing that I see. What paper should I use? You want to test a bunch of papers, just like that sample pack, and then really, really hone in on those 3 or 4. Are you a textured person? Are you a microporous RC person, and know those papers and know them well. But if you're using 20 papers, there's so much going on. I think it gets in the way of making the right decision.
Yeah, I can attest to that, because I've fallen into that trap. I've realized I'm a slightly glossy type of like luster, exhibition fiber. I've realized that's kind of my thing, and I've tried to. I feel like because we have hot press. all the fine art. We have all these papers, and I feel like they're there. I should use them. And I try using them, and I still find myself like, I kind of like this better. So that's a great point, though. Can I give one quick tip? Because this just happened to me. I had something printed large, and I even knew this going in. That's why I was embarrassed when it happened, because I thought I did it. I had something. It was probably this big, whatever we'd want to call this. So it was probably this big. Spots, sensor dust, because unless you zoom in and you look and you find all those tiny little spots when you're printing, it is a killer of a good print, because when you see that final page, you got all these little spots on it that you just did not see on your computer.
So I'm afraid that amazing Epson technology is working against you, because it's going to show all that stuff.
So go in there. If you're printing, you got to be meticulous about removing spots from your photos. Zoom in to like 300% and scroll around every single part of the photo and remove spots.
It is true. With printing technology, 10 years ago, you wouldn't see it. It wouldn't resolve it. The stuff today is so good.
It is.
You've got to take care.
So Dano's got a class on Kelby training. It's up on my computer here. You can see it, getting killer prints from your Epson printer. You did that with Scott. And then there's another class that you did with Josh from Nick Software on black and white printing, which I thought was great. It actually got me into.
I know you were like.
I was anti-black and white before that. So anyway. Dano, thank you so much, man.
Thanks,
I appreciate
the
wealth of information. Thank you for letting everybody know about the contest. Thanks to everybody over at ViewBug, and congratulations to the winners. And finally, thank you for watching, and for all of our sponsors here on the Grid Live. We appreciate it. We will be back here maybe next week. I hadn't really thought about it, but I'm going to be at WPP. You're going to be at WPP,
I'll be there.
Even though you wouldn't be here next week. We're all going to be gone next week, so we might not have a show next week.
Why don't you do it live from WPPI?
We could try that. Who knows? Come back here next week. Look, there'll either be a big sign that says we'll be back next week, or there'll be somebody here. So anyway, take care, guys. We'll talk to you again soon.
This week's episode of The Grid is sponsored by MPix. Shoot today, upload tonight, we ship tomorrow. On One Software, focused on photography. Peach Pit Press, publishers of technology books, ebooks, and videos for creative people. Epson, exceed your vision. Expo Imaging, Rogue Flash Benders for speedlight enthusiasts. Intel, the power you need for hardcore creatives. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional photography website. And B&H Photo, the professional source.